Hi, this is just a quick introduction to some basic infrastructure that we need for the rest of the semester since we'll be working on online. This is to get us set up with the essential tools we need to run molecular dynamics either in OS 10 or in Windows. So I'm working, as you see, on a Windows machine and an OS 10 machine at the moment. I do have a Windows virtual machine that I will be able to show you in a minute. Right now I'm on OS 10, and let's go through the steps needed to assemble the infrastructure we need for our work that we're going to carry out. So we're going to be downloading shortly tools from University of Illinois for visualizing molecules and for running molecular dynamics. But first, let's review sort of some basic other infrastructure we need. We need to have a terminal, which is an application that allows us to control our computer using text commands as opposed to double-clicking on icons. So double-clicking on icons is convenient for the casual user, but for computational scientists, it's very limited and limiting. And we really want to have the ability to quickly issue sometimes complex commands that will require many options, and we can't easily do that with a purely graphical environment. And we also have, at least in OS 10, really powerful scripting capabilities. We don't need that so much in our course, but in general, as computing people, we do need to have that capability. So terminal is the first thing we need to have available. Terminals are available by default. They're pre-installed in OS 10, also in Windows. If you don't know where the terminal is, the terminal application, let's find it now. Go to the Finder. This will open up a new file browser for us. And I'm going to select the Applications tab. So that by default should always be visible in your Finder file browser, no matter how you've set up your customizations. If you don't see this view, if you see something more like that, just go up here and choose this list presentation, which is a little more convenient for us. Let's scroll down now and find the utilities folder. So right now, if we think of our storage on the computer as a sort of a tree structure, at the very top is sort of the root of the file system. Under that is our applications folder, and under that is the utilities folder that you see right here. So let's double click on that to open it and scroll down. Down here you'll see the terminal application that I just activated. Since we're going to need this a lot, you should make this conveniently available and put it in the dock, this area over here. There's a similar space in Windows for you to put icons that represent applications that you're referencing frequently. And if you don't have it in your dock, just left click and then drag and put it into the dock. Of course, I already have it there, but if you do that, you'll be able to insert that into the dock, and then it'll always be available. So, like I said, that's always there. If you want to learn how to effectively use this, I mean, we're going to have more examples as we go along. But the very, very basic ideas are, first of all, ls to list the files in your current working directory. And that shows you what is really in your immediate view. So if you're thinking of sort of by analogy to the Finder, this is the current directory that we're looking at in the file browser. If we hold down the Command key on the keyboard and click on Utilities, we see where we are in the file system. So that's my top level, that's the disk drive itself, that's Applications under that, and that's Utilities inside Applications. If I ask for my present working directory here, I see that I am in my home directory folder, which has my username Zohar, and under that it is under the users folder. So if there's multiple users of this machine, everyone's got their own home directory inside users. And this first forward slash represents the top of the file system, the device itself, the disk drive that all my files are stored in. Okay, and so that's at least enough to orient where we are there. If I have, for example, a folder under my current working directory, since I'm in the home directory, I know that there is in fact a desktop folder right under me. And I can type in desktop and see the contents of the desktop folder now. So I'm no longer seeing my current home directory. I'm seeing desktop, which is under my home directory. That's a lot to try to explain at this point, and I will recommend that you go to an appropriate tutorial and really spend at least a half hour going through the basic commands that are available in the Unix shell so you can feel more comfortable with this. The one that I usually recommend is the one that comes up first, literally. If you ask for Unix tutorial in the Google search bar, this one at University of Surrey in the UK, Linux tutorial for beginners. And Unix, Linux, for us, it's all the same thing. OS 10 is a Unix operating system. And if you just at least go through tutorial 1, you learn the basics of just navigating through the file system. Those of you who use Windows are in a similar situation. Your machine also has folders and folders inside of folders, so it's essentially the same sort of structure. And so if you don't understand that structure, you need to learn. Okay, I'll just close that for the moment. Let's go ahead and install one more tool we're going to need, some more basic infrastructure. This is a text editor. We need to be able to open and edit, manipulate files that are not formatted documents like you use in Microsoft Word. These are plain text documents. These are documents that just have character data, basically alphabetical data. And that's the kind of information that is used by the kinds of tools we're going to be using this semester. So the particular application I'm going to suggest for you is called Sublime. And so let's look for Sublime Text Editor. There it is. It is a free tool. It is available, if we go to the download section here, for both OS 10 and for Windows. This is one of the main reasons that I am suggesting this particular text editor. It is not free. There's a license fee, but it has a 30-day trial period, and in fact, after that trial period is over, it just gives you an annoying message if you don't pony up for a license fee. So really, you should, of course, buy it. I have paid for the license fee, but you at least have for the rest of the semester to use this and not worry about it. So to install this, in this case for OS 10, I click on the link, and I then have to look for the download. And so in Chrome, you find it down here in the lower bar. It has downloaded a disk image. It's sort of the standard install route in OS 10, and it's opening the installer, really just the install folder. And to install this, all I have to do is drag it to this alias for the applications folder. And I've already got that installed, so it's asking me what to do. I'll just say, of course, stop. So I already have that. Just like we did for the terminal, you can go into the applications folder now, find Sublime, and drag it to the dock and make sure that it is available for you to use conveniently. Okay, so now let's install, for OS 10, one of our Dynamics tools. This would be the visualizer. So let's just type into the search bar, download VMD. that stands for, I believe, Visualize Molecular Dynamics, or Visualizer for Molecular Dynamics. And so we navigate to this link. It's at the University of Illinois, their Theoretical Computational Biophysics group. And this is a widely used tool. It's free. It's an open source project, and sort of a stand. It's not, as we'll see, it's not a terribly user-friendly tool, but it does the job, and it doesn't require that we pay any licensing fees. So the latest version, 1.94, is available for Mac OS X. As we'll see later, for Windows we have to use a lower version. They don't support Windows as well as OS X and Linux. So we click on this. It's going to ask us for a registration information first, for basically user ID. If this is the first time that you are accessing this website, simply provide a real email address, just your university address, and provide a password. In other words, make this up on the spot. And so I'll type in my existing password. If you're visiting for the first time and you click on this link here, it's going to ask you for some basic information about yourself. Just fill it in, and your password will be in effect. If you've visited this site before, it's just going to take you directly to the download page. So here I have for VMD, and I just affirm who I am, and that should immediately download, again, a disk image. It's not quite ready yet. Looks like it's successfully downloaded. So not quite as easy as for Sublime. We don't have a link to our applications folder, but it's a little bit harder. Let's open up again the file browser, and again make sure that we are in the applications folder. And again, same idea, we just have to drag this directly in. So the little icon for VMD goes into our applications folder. I already have done this before, so I'm just going to stop. The user's guide is also available here as a PDF document, and if for just convenience I can drag that onto my desktop so I can refer to that in the future. Okay, so then just close that. Next thing we can do is install NAMD. This is the tool which actually carries out molecular dynamics. So go back to the software section over here, and this time choose NAMD. And I have to now look for the download link. And similar situation as we had a moment ago. So version 2.13, which is the latest general distribution. You'll see down here we have for Mac OS X. You probably want to choose the one that just says 64 for the 64-bit operating system. The CUDA version is only if you have a special graphics hardware installed, which will probably not be the case. So just choose this generic version. Same as before, need to give the password, my email address is username, I should say, and then the password. Again, affirm your identity, and you should again see a download. This is a small command, so it shows up really fast. If you click on this, you're going to see the it automatically is you put this into mode where we see the most recent downloads at the top. So you'll see up here I have a compressed tar file, and this is for the NAMD distribution we just clicked on. So I see this at the top by just making sure that I sort my files by date modified, and then just move the view all the way to the top so I see the most recently downloaded. If I double click on this, I already did this before, so I already have it. Let me just get rid of that so we don't get confused, and do that also so we don't get confused. So there's my tar file, compressed tar file we just downloaded. If I double click on this, the Finder will automatically call up a program to open this for us, and there it is. As I said, I had a previous version already. So there's the folder for this application, NAMD 213 Mac OS X. So now you actually see it's a folder. It's been expanded. Again, I have a extra one here. I'm just going to get rid of it, send it to the trash, so we don't get confused. So there it is. So inside of this folder, if we open that, we see we've got NAMD 2, which is the current version of this tool. There's some other useful utilities that are provided also. Some in a library of supporting files that are also required. So everything is there for us in one place. Let's do the same thing and put this into the applications folder. So I'm going to open up a second Finder window. And again, make sure I have selected the Applications tab. There I can see the Sublime that I just downloaded a moment ago. I'm going to drag this whole folder into the Applications folder. Again, I did this before, so it's going to ask me what to do. Be careful if you do this by drag and drop, as I'm showing here. Do not accidentally drag the folder inside another folder like I'm trying to do here, because that will work, and you'll end up putting the folder in a place you don't expect. Make sure when you drag it, you just put it in a general area where you're not hovering over another folder. Okay. All right, but as I said, I did this before, and that folder is already in my applications area. If I scroll up, look in the alphabetical list, I can find it right there. Okay. Now, to actually run that is not really convenient. I mean, you can certainly just leave it there and execute it where it is, but it takes a little bit of work. If I just type in the name of the tool, NAMD2, it's going to say not found. And that's because OS X and Windows has the same feature, wants to know where commands and applications live, and there have to be in a special environment variable called a path. And since we don't have that path specified yet, we have to give the complete location information for this command if we're going to run it. I have to start at the top of the file system, which I'm showing by the /, capital APP, and then I can just hit a tab. The tab key will auto-complete. So I have applications, and I'm going to type in capital NAMD and hit the tab key again to auto-complete. There I have the name of that folder. Now I can put in NAMD2. So we've told now the terminal exactly where that command lives in the file system. Applications folder, NAMD2 folder, and then finally the name of the application itself, the name of the tool. And we can see that, in fact, it did find it. It has a scary looking error message, but nothing here is really wrong. If we read what the error message says, it says fatal error, no simulation config file specified. That simply means that it had nothing to work with. We didn't give it a file of instructions that would tell it how, essentially how to set up and carry out some kind of simulation. So we're going to, of course, change that in the future when we start really using this. And so for the moment, that message is just fine. It shows us that we can execute that command, and that if we had input for it, we would expect it to work. To make that easier, however, so I can do this, NAMD2, I should, in fact, include that application location in the path that is available, so it'll be available easily. I'm going to open up the Sublime Text Editor, which you should have dragged to your dock by now, and we're going to open up a special configuration file. So say open. Make sure I'm looking in my home directory, which I currently am, and I won't actually be able to see this configuration file. This is a hidden file. It has a period at the start of the name, and those files by default are not shown in the file browser. And that's because they're not for editing by casual users. They're only for editing by power users, by experts. And since you're becoming a computational expert now, you have to learn how to open those files. In an editor like Sublime, the way you do that is, and you can't see this, I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. I'm holding down the Command key. At the same time, I'm holding down the Shift key, and then I'm going to hit the period on the keyboard. When I do that, a magical thing happens, and now I see all of the hidden files. One of these is called bash_profile. So it's a period, BASH_profile. This is where we set up any special configuration we want for our environment. So I'm going to say open. Now yours is probably empty because you're new at being a power user. I have a lot of stuff in mine. The one that I'm really concerned with here is path, P-A-T-H. And so I'm going to look down at the sort of the bottom of my file because I want to make a change now after the last place I modified the path. And that seems to be down here. I'm going to make this just a little bit off screen. Just hold this up so you can see the actual bottom of the file. So here I'm going to go past the very last stuff that I put in my file. As I said, I will emphasize your file may be completely empty. I can't see your machine. It may be completely empty. And so we're just going to set the path, assuming that you don't have anything there. Let's say path equals, and then this part you just have to accept for the moment. I'm going to put in double quote, and Sublime automatically puts in a closing double quote, a $sign, and then in curly braces, capital P-A-T-H, and close curly brace. So what that means is we're going to put into this location, when this is interpreted, whatever the current path is. So whatever the system defines up front, it's going to be there. Now I'm going to put a colon, and I'm going to add whatever else I want to be in the path. And this is not going to be the actual NAMD2 application. It's going to be just the folder that it lives in. We have that information already over here, right? That is how we ran NAMD2 just a moment ago. So I want to include all of this information in my path. So applications, and then the NAMD2 folder, all the way up to that closing, that second /. I'm going to use on the Mac command. Command, of course, is the key that has like little apple sign or little squiggly icon. Command C to copy that while I'm inside the terminal. Switch over to here, and then say Command V as Victor to paste that in. So on Windows, it would be Control C, Control V. On a Mac, it's Command C and Command V to copy. So now we have added to our path. Whatever the current path is, we've got a colon, and now we've got the folder that we want to have as another place to look for tools, for commands. Easy. So we just save this now, Command S, and I can close this file. I'm going to hit a Control C here just to terminate, basically interrupt that command. Now if I type in NAMD2, it's going to be disappointing. It's going to say the same thing. That's because we need a new terminal session to be able to pick up that change we just made. Close that window, go to Shell, New Window. Let me make this a little larger again. If you want to make your window larger, just Command Shift and then the plus sign. Now if I type in NAMD2, there it is. So it found it immediately. I don't have to worry about putting in all that applications information. In terms of running VMD, the visualizer, as we'll see when we start using that, that's easy. You go to the applications folder. Again, I would suggest, since we're going to use it a lot, this is the latest version here, drag that into your dock, just left mouse click and put it into your some convenient place in your dock. Again, I think I've already got it there, but let me try that again. Put it there. There it is. And to activate it, just left click. It takes it just a moment to start up. It's still bouncing. It may take a little bit longer the very first time that you open it. I think it's almost there. There we go. So we're going to come back in a later session and explore a little bit what this is about, how this display window works, and how we load molecules and so forth. This moment is just enough to see that we can start it up and have it working on our machine. So the controls for this are here on this little floating VMD main menu. I'm just going to quit. Yes, I really want to quit. Okay, and so now we've looked sort of at the OS X side. Now let's look at the Windows side. So what I've opened up is a virtual machine running Windows 10. So I'm still on the Mac, but I have Windows operating system running inside this box. So let's go through the same sorts of steps we did in OS X to sort of examine the basic infrastructure we need and download what we need. So in Windows, there is an analog to the OS X terminal, to the Unix shell, and that's called the Windows PowerShell. So if we go into the open portal here, we can find Windows PowerShell and open that. And we've got an interface that looks essentially like the OS X terminal. It responds to some of the same Unix commands, ls, for example, to list the files and folders that are in our current directory. Allows us to see what our present working directory is and so forth. So it works essentially like the OS X Unix terminal, but it is much less capable, has much fewer features. But this is where you will run things from the command line in Windows. So I'm going to close that. Let's open a browser. And let's first of all download and install Sublime. So again, just download Sublime. This time we're in Bing instead of the Google search tool. Okay, go to download and choose the Windows 64-bit version. Let's say we want to run the installer. Give permission. I'm just going to take all of the default settings here. And it's finished. So sometimes it'll show you recently added. I don't see it here. To find that application, let's just type Sublime into the search field, and there it is. So we can activate it. Excuse me. It looks just like on OS X essentially. Same kind of interface. If we want to make this easily accessible and always handy, just like in OS X, this is sort of their version of the dock. And we can ask to pin this to the taskbar. So we'll always have Sublime available even if we exit the program. So let's also get VMD. So I will, again, download VMD. Put that in the search bar. And we're back to the University of Illinois. And choose the, again, the generic Windows OpenGL version of this. So again, we need to have our username and password, and continue with that, and verify your identity again, and let it download. I think we can also just go ahead and say run the installer when it's downloaded. Looks like we have to choose that to bring it to the front. And again, same sort of operations we had before, a really simple installer. Just take the default settings. And that's complete. And again, to find VMD, just type here. And we bring it up just as we had it in OS 10. And we have the same little floating menu that we have in the OS 10 version. So as I said before, we'll come back to VMD and the other tools and learn to explore them later. For now, we're just getting things set up. So I'll quit. And just as in OS 10, let's now get NAMD, the Dynamics tool, installed. So we'll download NAMD. Again, I'm going to search for the generic Windows version, not the CUDA version, just the regular Windows 64. Again, you need to provide your credentials. Identify yourself again, and now we can do the download. In this case, I'm just going to say save, because this is a very simple command line tool. It does not have an installer, and so let's just leave it like that. I'm going to close the browser. Let's open a file browser and go to downloads, and there we see what appears to be the same sort of thing we downloaded in OS 10. This is in fact a compressed zipped file in this case, just slightly different form of compression. I'm going to right click on this and ask to extract all. It's going to extract into a folder with an appropriate name. Let's just go ahead and say extract. So there's the result, and we've got essentially it makes a folder inside of a folder. I'm not sure why, but that's fine. If we open this, this has got all the same contents that we saw in the OS 10 version. So I'll go back to the upper level. We usually don't want to leave applications like this or their folders in downloads. So I'm going to right click on this and cut this folder. And let's just put it somewhere more appropriate. I'll just go to the local disk. We can put this in program files if we wish to. So this is sort of the common, again, just like the applications folder. And now I just don't hover over anything. I do a right click and say paste. And we say continue. And so NAMD has now been put into the appropriate location with other applications like Sublime. Sublime also is here. Okay, so just as we experienced in OS 10, if I open PowerShell, in fact, while I'm thinking of it, let's pin that to the taskbar so we don't have to keep searching for it. So down here, I'm going to right click and say pin to taskbar. So we always have it there. If I go up to the PowerShell and I type in NAMD2, it'll be a similar result as we had in OS 10. It doesn't know where to find that tool, that command. So we have to add it to the path, just as we did in OS 10. A little bit different procedure. Actually, this is one case where maybe in Windows it is easier. We go here and just simply search for path, P-A-T-H, and we're taken to Edit System Environment Variables and select that. So one of our choices here in this dialog is to change environment variables. And we see two boxes. One is for the user level, one is for the system. I would recommend doing this at the system level. So I'm going to select the system variable path and choose to edit it. And so these are sort of shortcuts that are available. These are really variables that define various places that commands will be expected to reside on this machine. And I'm going to say to add a new element to the path. So choose new. So we got an empty location now. I'm going to browse. And so let's go back to this PC, and we'll go to I guess I have to go all the way to local disk C to find the program files. There it is. Find program files, and let's look for our NAMD installation. So there's the folder NAMD213. Just select that and say OK, and that's now added to our path. So I'll accept that and make sure that we accept it everywhere, so it gets saved. Doing OK there too. So if I type NAMD2, I don't think it's going to immediately pick that up. It didn't get that change immediately, just as in the OS X side, in the OS X shell. Let's kill this window and open up a new one. If I type in NAMD2, so it now found the file, but we didn't get the error message, and I believe that's because I'm working in a virtual machine. It's not really Windows hardware, and I think that there's an issue here with running this particular command. I have done exactly the same series of operations on actual Windows computers, and NAMD functions in exactly the same way as it does in OS X. So I think this is simply a side effect of the fact that I am working in a VMware virtual machine. So I'm going to take on faith that in your capable hands, it will work on your Windows laptop or desktop unit. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. That's quite a bit for one time, one go. And next screencast I'll put together is to explore some features of VMD and NAMD. In the future, because I am working in OS X, I am going to be demonstrating from OS X, not from a Windows machine. So if you're working in Windows, the operations you carry out are going to look just like what we do in OS X. You're going to be in this PowerShell instead of in the Unix shell. But in terms of navigating the file system and carrying out all the basic activities, it's going to be the same story. Okay, thanks very much, and I will see you soon.